Hey friends, happy Sunday and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I am Taylor. I'm a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I share these What's for Dinner videos every Sunday to hopefully motivate you to cook more for your family and give you some new meal ideas. We tried some really good recipes this week and I cannot wait to share them with you. So as always, any recipes that I mention will be linked in the description box down below. Now let's go ahead and get into this week's What's for Dinner. Friday night we had sheet pan potatoes and Lil Smokies. This was actually supposed to be smoked sausage, but somehow on my freezer planner thing I had written that I still had one smoked sausage, but I didn't. So instead I just used a package of Little Smokies. So I'm starting off by just cutting up a bunch of potatoes into little bite-sized pieces. Try to get them as even in size as possible so they cook in about the same amount of time. And then I've got a package of Little Smokies. There was still some ice on them, as you can see, but they were thawed out. They cut in half really easily, and I just cut them in half just to make them more bite size. And then I've got all of that on a sheet pan, and I just drizzled it with some olive oil and then seasoned it with a Lipton onion soup pack. I actually did 2 of those, and then some salt and pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and some paprika. Just tossed that around, made sure everything was nice and coated, and then I spread it out into a nice even layer, and then put this in the oven on 425 for about 35 minutes until my potatoes were nice and tender and just a little bit crispy. And to go with this, I just made a can of green beans, and we had some ketchup, of course, for dipping. This is delicious. This is one of those things that's very similar to what my mom made growing up. She always made the fried potatoes and smoked sausage in a pan on the stove. I'm actually going to make that soon, but this always reminds me of that. It's just way simpler. You don't have to stand there and keep stirring it. You just put it in the oven and just kind of forget about it for 30 minutes. This next meal is a new favorite. Probably one of the best things I've made in a long time. Everyone loved it and asked me when I'm going to make it again. I'm going to call it one pot creamy chicken and rice. It didn't really have a name. I found it on TikTok from, I think her name is Nutritional Sarah. She's a registered dietitian. She makes all kinds of yummy food. I've made a couple of her recipes before, but this one is by far the favorite one that I have tried. So I started off by just heating up a little bit of olive oil in a skillet, and then once that was hot, I started browning half of an onion with some minced garlic, and I let that cook for about 5 minutes. And then I added in 2 chicken breasts that have been chopped up, and then I'm going to season that with onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, red pepper flakes, and salt and pepper. And the back of my pepper grinder popped off in the middle of this. I froze and panicked and didn't know how I was gonna get all these peppercorns out of here. I ended up pausing the video, removing the pan from the heat, and just taking a spoon and scooping them out. And I lost some of the onions and garlic in that process, but that was all I could think of to do to get rid of those. So then I just stirred that around, make sure everything was coated with the seasoning, and then cooked it for another 5 minutes. The chicken does not have to be all the way cooked through at that point. We're going to end up adding some broth and making sure it gets cooked all the way through. So after the 5 minutes, then I added in about 1.5 cups of frozen broccoli. This recipe doesn't have a lot of measurements. You could do more or less broccoli if you want. And then I added in 1 cup of rice, 2.5 cups of chicken broth, or I did water and nor chicken bouillon, and then I brought that to a boil. And once it came to a boil, I covered it and reduced the heat and simmered it for 20 minutes until my rice was tender. And then I just added in some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. I think I did about 1 cup. Again, not a lot of measurements for this part. About 1 cup of cheese, and then about 1 cup of blended cottage cheese. This is what helps make it super creamy, and also it helps make it really filling because cottage cheese adds a lot of protein and we just loved how it made everything so creamy. But if you don't like cottage cheese, you don't have to do it, but if you blend it up, I promise you it's delicious in this. It's so good. Even Andy doesn't like cottage cheese, and neither does Lily, and they thought this dish was delicious. And then I also added in about a cup of chopped spinach. And then this is ready to serve as soon as that spinach is wilted. Sunday night, I made Italian crescent bake, which is something we love, but not something I've made in a little while. So I wanted to make it again. I'm starting off by just browning a pound of ground beef with some seasonings. I did some salt and pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and some Italian seasoning, and then just cooked that up until it was browned and done. And then you can drain the grease if you have a lot of grease. The meat that I buy from Sam's Club does not have a lot of grease, so I did not have the need to drain it. And then once it's all done, you can just add in about half a jar of marinara sauce, whatever is your favorite. Add that in, stir it around, make sure it's combined really well. You don't really need to heat it up or anything because we're going to be transferring this to a dish and baking it in the oven. So at this point, I just go ahead and turn off the heat. And then I have a pie plate here, and I grease it. The original recipe says ungreased, but I just spray it with a little bit of cooking spray. And then I've got 1 tube of crescent rolls that I am arranging in, like, I think they call it like a spoke pattern. All of the points sticking out, instead like overlapping the edge by like 3 inches. So I do that, and then whatever's laying in the pie plate you want to press together and flatten out so that it covers the entire bottom of the pie plate. And then I'm going to sprinkle on some mozzarella cheese, and then I'm going to add on our meat mixture, and then I'm going to fold those corners of the crescent dough over so that they meet in the middle. And then I'm going to sprinkle this with some more mozzarella cheese, top it with a little bit of dried basil, and then this went in the oven on 375 degrees for 18 minutes. Once it comes out of the oven, I let it cool for like 10 minutes, and then it makes it easier to cut, and it kind of like holds its shape. It's like a little pie. And to go with it, those of us that like salad had salad, and Lily just had some fresh veggies. Monday night was Andy and I's 10-year wedding anniversary, so we celebrated with some steak dinner at home. It's just less expensive that way, and we just prefer to be at home at dinner time instead of like out and about when other people are out and about. I had this shrimp and scallop and champagne sauce stuff that I bought a couple weeks back at Aldi on clearance, and I was saving it for our anniversary because I thought it would be tasty, and it was pretty tasty. I only paid $3.50 for this thing. It was, I think, half price. I don't know if I would have paid the regular price for it. It was good, but it didn't feel like there was very much shrimp or scallops in the little dish, but it paired really well with our steak, and because we had steak on the side, we were full with our steak and scallops, and then I also had made some rice. So I just cooked this according to the box directions. It says to take those little ramekins, put them on a baking dish, and stick it in the oven, I think on 400 for 30 minutes, and it came out perfect. It was super easy. So while that was cooking in the oven, and then I worked on our steak. I have 2 different steaks here, one for the kids, one for Andy and I to split, and I just took them out of the package, let them come up to room temperature for about 20 minutes, and then I also patted them dry and seasoned them on both sides with some salt and pepper, and that's it. That's all that I do. And then I heated up my cast iron pan. I put a little bit of olive oil in there, and then I just cooked my steaks. I do about 4 to 5 minutes per side depending on the thickness. The one for Andy and I was a little bit thicker, so I did like 5 minutes on that one and 4 minutes on the kids. Flip them over, do the same thing on the other side. And then these ones had like a big like fat cap, is that what you call it, on one side. So I made sure to sear that as well at the very end. I recommend using a meat thermometer to get your steak to the perfect doneness for you. We like medium rare steaks, so cooking them like 4 and 5 minutes gets it to be perfect for us every single time. To go with our steaks, we just had some rice pilaf. It was just a simple box mix from Aldi. And then the kids didn't have the shrimp and scallops, so they had one of these little Dole, I think they're called Wigglers, that we picked up at Sam's Club. They're like made with 100% like fruit instead of like Jello. It doesn't have any added sugar. They're not very sweet at all. Much better than just regular Jello, and the kids really liked them, so they had that with their dinner. And that was it for our anniversary dinner. Tuesday night I went for super easy, and I had picked up some Potstickers earlier in the day at Trader Joe's, so I cooked those up and just made my super simple fried rice. And I will leave a video link down below if you've never seen my fried rice. That'll be down there for y'all. It is delicious and doesn't take very long at all. Wednesday night, we tried another new recipe. This is chili lime tilapia in the air fryer, and this was pretty good. I was just looking for a way to use up some lime and some tilapia, and I figured I could make something with that, so I found this recipe on Pinterest. So I'm starting off by making a little rub to put on our tilapia. It's going to be 2 teaspoons of chili powder, a teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of oregano, half a teaspoon of salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and the zest from 1 lime. Mix that all together really well and then set that to the side. And then I've got some tilapia here. I am just patting it dry, and I've got it on my air fryer rack. And I'm just going to put that rub all over both sides of the tilapia and just press it in to make sure it really sticks to it. Put it on the bottom side, flip it over, and then put it on the top. And then this goes in the air fryer on 400 degrees for about 10 minutes. Super quick and easy. And then at the end, when it comes out, I forgot to record this. Forgot to press record on my camera, but you're going to squeeze it with the juice from half of a lime. So here I had already done that. I pressed record too late, but yeah, got the lime juice on there. And then I just served this with some black beans that I seasoned with the Goya Total seasoning, some cilantro lime rice. The link for that will be down below. And then some little baby zucchinis that I had picked up at Trader Joe's. I just cooked those up in a little bit of oil and salt and pepper and garlic and onion powder. This was delicious. It was fresh tasting because of the lime. Everything just tasted really good. And finally, Thursday night, we had our crock pot meal of the week. This is crock pot cube steak and gravy, and this is definitely one of our favorite crock pot meals. We love anything that's like meat and gravy over noodles. So in the crock pot, I am mixing together 1 package of onion soup mix, 2 cans of cream of chicken, or if you like cream of mushroom, you can do that. A cup of beef broth, or I'm doing water and beef bouillon powder, and then you just want to whisk that all together. And then I realized that I had this Campbell's Flavor Up thing in the fridge, and that is like a savory mushroom and herb flavor, so I decided to add that in since I don't like cream of mushroom. It's a texture thing. I don't like the little tiny chunks of mushrooms. I do not like the texture of mushrooms, but I don't mind the flavor of mushroom flavored things, so I can add that in. And I added that in, and it definitely gave it some more flavor. Turned out delicious. So once I had that all mixed together, then I added in my cube steak. This is probably about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of cube steak. Add that in, put the lid on this, and let it cook on low for 6 to 8 hours. At the end, you can just go in, separate your cube steak. They mostly keep their shape, and then you can just like take one out and put it over top of your noodles. If you want to, you could shred it up, but we prefer to keep it whole. And then just mix in a little bit of cornstarch and water. So in a separate dish, I'm mixing together about 1 tablespoon or 2 of cornstarch and 1 tablespoon or 2 of water. I like to do this a little bit at a time until I get the gravy to the consistency that I want, just to kind of thicken it up a little bit, and then serve this over some noodles. We did rotini this night. Usually I do egg noodles, but I didn't realize we were out of egg noodles. But it still turned out delicious, and everybody loved it. But that is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. I hope that y'all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave me a thumbs up and let me know down below if you plan on trying any of these recipes. I hope y'all have a great week, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!